What up, guys? My name is Chris. This is Wheelhouse Trading, and welcome to the Wheelhouse. So, I thought what I would do is just kind of talk about several things going on in the markets. I want to, stay on this Bitcoin. I'm a firm believer that Bitcoin needs to be looked at just as important as you would look at the indexes like the Russell, the Nasdaq, the SPY, and the Dow. I do believe that Bitcoin is the Dow of crypto. I don't really like to trade the alts, even directionally, even into momentum, unless Bitcoin is really showing a direction either up or down. So I really like to pay attention to Bitcoin specifically. If Bitcoin is happy, everything is happy. If the indexes are going up, then you can buy stocks to go long. If the indexes are coming down, it's dangerous to buy stocks to go long, and you would consider maybe going short. There's ways to not circumvent, but reduce risk or raise probabilities of success. We got to take a look at this stuff daily, because we are kind of at a moment of truth on a lot of things. Now, first, I want to explain a little bit about the Russia-Ukraine tensions, why it's happening, a little bit of information, just kind of a summary of it. So basically, Russia and Ukraine were one, okay? And at one point back in 1991, there was a separation between Ukraine and Russia, and it separated. And the current president, Zelensky, he was an actor and comedian, and he ran to be the president of Ukraine, and he had run on that he would stop the tensions in Donbass, and they voted him in, and I don't think that he had like a ton of political background. He was an actor and a comedian, and so he's had his hands full. Now, not a lot has happened with the tensions in Donbass since then. So there has been tensions for a long time, and Vladimir Putin has said many times publicly that he believes that Ukraine is part of Russia, and the Ukraine people are part of they're all one, and he's been pretty much, I guess you would call it, butthurt that they separated. Well, additional tensions started when NATO basically had started speaking to Ukraine, and now Ukraine is not part of NATO, just so you know, but some of the surrounding countries, I think it was like Belarus, Latvia, there's a few of them are. And what happens is when Ukraine separates from Russia, it changes Vladimir Putin's position from a military standpoint. And if they become a NATO ally, then Ukraine, if Ukraine does become a NATO ally at some point, it also becomes more of a threat for Moscow and Russia and Putin. So now it gets a little bit more sticky, because Russia has specific commodities that are exported to various buyers, different countries. So the simplest way I can explain this is, Putin has two major pipelines. One runs through the Baltic Sea, and the other runs through Ukraine down into Germany. So imagine it like this. Putin has his hand on the faucet. The plumbing is in Ukraine, and the water comes out in Germany, okay? And then that's distributed, the natural gas is distributed throughout Europe. Now, this is how Russia makes a lot of money. They make a lot of money on oil export, natural gas, these pipelines. That pipeline I'm talking about is called the Nord 2 pipeline. And things like palladium, which is used for like catalytic converters, which is a supply chain issue for vehicles. That's why you see in the CPI report the used vehicles are surging and being bought for more and sold for more. And it's a supply demand issue. Same with the oil, same with natural gas, and same with fertilizer, which is causing a supply chain issue for us in America for growing food and whatnot. And another reason why, Biden is sending troops over to support NATO in Poland, because one of the main exports is wheat and grain from Ukraine. And because we're already having the fertilizer issue and we're already having some food supply chain issues, and they're not putting a lot of that on the news. They are putting some, but not too bad. We definitely need that wheat and grain and the fertilizer, and we also need the oil. And because there's troops on the border, it's keeping the price of oil very, very high. Now, Biden is trying to go to Iran to secure a deal for more oil, but that's going to have to be approved by OPEC, which, if you guys know, that's always like a difficult situation with OPEC. So. You have Putin that is upset at Ukraine because they separated, number one, and that kind of became the fall of the Soviet Union as well. Like it never was the same after 1991. Then you have Ukraine, not only that separated to become its own, but now possibly talking with NATO to join in the future, which would weaken or threaten Moscow, Putin, and Russia defensively. Okay, so Putin is not just asking but demanding that some of the military troops and everything kind of be pulled back, and that Europe back down a little bit in their defenses, and that Ukraine not join NATO because it threatens them. But at the same time, if he invades Ukraine, he cuts off he kind of shoots himself in the foot, because the plumbing or the pipeline, the Nord 2 pipeline, goes through Ukraine to Germany, and Germany is the buyer and U.S. is the buyer. So his money that's coming in for export on oil and natural gas, and for all this that we're paying him, that all the countries are paying him, is how his economy runs. And if he invades Ukraine, and we go to, like, say, Iran and get an OPEC approval, well, then essentially, like, his money dries up, and it could be very hard on his own economy up there in Russia. Meanwhile, the Ukrainians are saying that the troops have been there for a long time, tensions have been going on for a long time. But I mean, you can't really argue with 150,000 troops in a horseshoe around all the borders of Ukraine, and you can't really argue that they have field hospitals and importing blood supplies and things like that. That's pretty much stuff that you do right before you invade, to make sure your people, if they need blood transfusions, or they have the field hospitals. So it's really kind of intense. What's going to happen, and it will affect other countries, and it will affect the markets, it will affect commodity prices. It's just kind of crazy if Russia actually goes through with this, because, again, the Nord 2 pipeline goes through Ukraine, and with the sanctions from all the other countries, it cuts him off financially. And then we need to keep an eye on what's going on with Russia and China and Taiwan, and there's just a lot of that stuff going on. So I hope I explained that well enough. But essentially, Russia and Ukraine were together. They split. Putin doesn't like that. Previously, he had the Nord 2 pipeline going in. Buyers were Germany. It was distributed, and then we were a buyer as well for export for oil and fertilizer and palladium. Meanwhile, he has mounted a lot of troops, and it's going to be interesting what happens, but it's certainly catching up to the markets. What happens in the stock market, with those indexes really do affect Bitcoin in the crypto market. And then you have new things going on, like Biden has created a task force with the FBI for criminal activity in crypto, which I think is fine. I mean, I don't do anything illegal with crypto. In fact, I saw on Bloomberg that only 1% of all the transactions and things going on in crypto, only 1% is criminal activity. So 99% is not. So I'm in the camp with the 99% where I just trade it or own it, hold it, and I don't think like to do anything bad or devious or nefarious. So having an FBI task force for it. I mean, if you want to have crypto, any currency or financial instruments, that's probably coming and has come now. And I mean, it's just another piece of regulation and enforcement. Now, I'd rather have that than ban it, where you couldn't trade it or own it in the US. So, that's going to scare the crypto markets as well. Let's take a look at what's going on here. So I clean up this chart a little bit, and I had showed you previously, you had this accumulation phase, which sometimes can be called even a bear market depending on the percentage it goes down, and you have this pivot. You start your blue ribbons, you go above the 200, and you start trending upwards, and eventually come to distribution, and I'm just showing you the straight line to the top, which was about that 64,000. Which is a pretty major number. I think it's more significant even than the 69,000 when I look at linear regressions and even like fib channels and things like that. So I think the 64 line, I tagged it green as a real level of importance, and you can see you come to the peak here, and then you trend down, and all this different stuff happen. And you create this floor, and it creates a pivot and a new direction going up. And even though there's pullbacks along the way, it eventually comes to its peak, and then it gets to that 69 and a half number, and it comes down through all this crazy stuff, finds a bottom, okay, right here at about the 32,615, and it goes through all this little sideways and has two touches, which establishes a new direction. Now it creates this nice little rally, okay, this little impulse, and the wicks, three of them, get locked up, and it actually can't go above this 44, this sticky 44 number, and which is always, it's always been like a little issue with this 44 number. Actually, let's tag that one green as well, and it fails. So at that point, I had taken you back on the 1 hour. I had gone long through there, and then I had explained that it was right in here. I'd explained right here we were going to stay in the ribbons. We took the trade right here. It was flirting up and down. I had gone to bed, and I couldn't sleep very well. And then when I woke up early morning, it failed, and I got out. And then I went short. And I follow these clouds, and these ribbons a lot, and for trend and momentum. Went short. I closed the short because we're coming down over here to this crypto winter line, which is right here, and you can see, and the reason you have it as crypto winter is because it's like the neckline of this major move. Okay, so So it comes up, it makes the three wicks and fails. Okay, it creates this bull flag kind of scenario where it goes up, rejects, comes back, goes up, rejects, and we have two choices. We either tighten the ribbons and we go up through this major line where all the geometry goes from the pivot on the magic T theory, as well as the 200 flattening, the ribbons getting tight, and it going through the 44 and over to this number 45, basically 45.4-ish. And I think everything's going to happen right around February 28th or March 1st. Well, since then, it did turn into the second scenario, which is more of a double top and a breakthrough. And, we are basically retesting the crypto winner. Okay, so now we have more information we have more information, and that's why I had drawn in this second line, because we either come down and we create the pivot and we go up and we do it slowly, which still could happen, by the way. Could absolutely happen. I mean, look, you come sideways, you go up, you go sideways, you go up, you go down. Well, I mean, look, you create a pivot, you go up, you go down, you go up, you go down, you know, I mean, but still directionally. So, I mean, even if this direction ends up being something like this, you know, where you are making your way out, you know, but, you know, and it comes up and down and up and down, and you're still going directionally up. Now, it will be important to know, if we do not hold this line right here. If we don't hold this line, well, I mean, you know, you're definitely gonna want to short it. Now, I shorted it and I closed the short because, you know, I want to see where we're going to go. Are we going to bounce off this line, or are we going to fall through? If we're going to fall through, I'll open a short. If we're going to bounce, I'll consider opening a long, but I want to do it with specific conditions into strength and momentum. And, you know, you got to always be careful going long under a 200. And, you know, I don't want to go short. You know, it's better to go short up here, or right under the 200, not like right when it's like going sideways on the 200, or excuse me, on the crypto winner neckline. Below it, you know, it'd be a great place, because then you can put your stop right above it for low risk. So if we fall through here, are we going to test the lows, or are we going to go further? So what I had drawn in this line. So I drew this one in case we go up, which we still might. And I drew this one in case we fail and we come down, and this ends up being a major lower high, and then it starts doing this like the indexes are doing. Now, I put in here possible bottom, and the possible bottom here is $19,361. And the way that I came up with that, was a few different things that I did, but what I did was I looked at this this linear regression. Okay, and if you notice, the yellow line right here is the reversion to the mean, and it happens to be lining up perfectly with the 200, and both of them are going right into this date of February 28th to March 1st, that 24-hour period. Okay, there's only 28 days in February. All right, so you know, you have the reversion of the mean lining up. You have all the geometry from the pivot, the magic T theory, all the possible outcomes, and the 200 flattening, all leading right into this date. I don't know what's going to happen on this date, but usually I don't see this many things lining up for one scenario. So I don't know if this pops up and gets rejected. I don't know if this pops up and has a major breakout. You know, we'll just have to see what happens. Maybe it comes down and the big fail is actually on this date. I just don't know. But if this yellow line is the reversion to the mean, and it went up one deviation. So this deviation right here, I'm going to tag green. And if you notice, it is the distribution peak pivot low. This deviation, see how your yellow and the blue and the green touch? It's a perfect deviation. Okay, the second deviation, all right. Hold on, do I have it on the 200 or the 50? It's the 200, right? Let me just look at something real quick, guys. Yeah, I have the 200. Okay, just checking. All right, so the next one, you know, comes up, and it's basically like, you know, the peak, which the middle of it lines up perfectly with the previous all-time high, which I think is a very significant number, actually, because when I look at the fib channel and the linear regression, as well as the pivot peak and the previous all-time high, I think that this number right here, this 64,793.55, I think it's actually more significant than this all-time high of 69,000. The linear regression, 2 deviations up, show that. Now, the third deviation would take us into that 72 area. But if you notice, when you come down from the linear regression, it actually comes down this blue line, and it comes right down to crypto winner. So 1 deviation down is there, and 2 deviations down is the pivot. So interestingly enough, if you have the regression line meets up with the 200, everything points to this date, and you go one down and it's crypto winter, you go two down and it's the pivot, and you go three down and it ends up being right here. Now I think, the way you got to follow the timeline, but if you come down, I mean, the bottom here could be as low as 19,437.53. Now, of course, it could go lower if you were looking at something like the week, like if you were looking at something like the weekly, like your weekly 200, for an example. Look how the weekly 200 also lines up perfect with a deviation. That brings you right about 24,615, and if you went to the lowest, you're at about 14,000. So, I mean, it depends, how you're looking at it. But notice how it fits perfectly on the top again and meets the pivot. And notice how the linear regression, the reversion of the mean, also on the weekly lines up to the perfect geometry again. And the deviation below goes to the pivot, and the deviation below is the 200. So there's a lot of interesting things going on right now in the Bitcoin charts, and we truly are at a moment of truth. Now, I'm not sure what's going to happen on this day, but I feel like, based on what I'm seeing, there's a lot of things lining up. I mean, this line regression is going to meet right up in here. The 200 is going to meet right up in here. The pivot to the angle meets right up in there. So we're definitely a couple days away from figuring out. Now, if Biden is coming out with his task force and there's executive orders and regulation for crypto this week, I mean, that's enough definitely to send this thing lower. And if that's the case, then I will open shorts. And it's unfortunate, and we go lower. However, like I say, use the fear and all the scary things to your advantage. And if it goes lower, not only trade it directionally, not only trade this directionally down to wherever it goes. I mean, it might do something more like, it could come down here, and then it could bounce off here, and then it could break out, or it could come down further. We're really just need more data. We just need to see exactly what's going to happen. And we're going to know very soon. I mean, it's coming to a head. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen by the end of February, first day of March. Now, let's just take a look at this. So if I take off the longer regression and I put in the shorter regression, which is 50 days, you have the regression line here meets right up to the crypto winter line, which is exactly where we are right now. And if you go one deviation up, well, that's this previous pivot low that I've tagged green, which is the 44,000 number that we just were rejected on. And if you go one more deviation up, we're right at the 200. And you go one more deviation up, we're above this one and touching that. We're in this like a box of like a box of confluence kind of thing. So and that's true. Like all this stuff is like sticky areas, So we start looking at these different areas, and I guess in a lot of the green lines, like this 44 is definitely sticky, which is right here. And you could essentially come in here and you could do one of these. It definitely is merited to do it. You have the sticky box because it comes down in it, and it all finds its way back in, finds its way back up, finds its way back in, goes below. It's just one of those little areas. But again, if this is the linear regression and it's exactly where we're at and lines up with this crypto winter line, which is exactly where we're at right now, and then you have deviation 1 comes down to the next low point, and then the next deviation, two more deviations comes to the exact pivot. I mean, everything is kind of lining up with the linear regression for the longer time frame, the shorter time frame, as well as the fib channels. I was looking at the fib channels too, and the fib channels are also lining up exactly like to all the points. So it's really like something big is going to happen. It's either going to fall hard or it's going to push up. And, if you look at the macro environment, the geopolitical tensions, the rate hikes, so, all these different things. Remember, if Bitcoin is an inflation hedge, okay, we know we're going into inflation, so, it's going to go up. Then you start getting CPI reports of high inflation, them talking about tapering last summer. Rate hikes, well, it starts coming down because, Bitcoin people that are purchasing for an inflation hedge think, oh, well, if inflation is transitory at that time and we're going to reduce tapering and lower rates, it's not going to, we don't have inflation, so it's going to come down. Well, inflation is not transitory. It starts getting really high and it starts going up. Well, now they're talking about, 50 basis hikes, 100 basis hikes by July being endorsed. So it puts that fear in. And then you add in geopolitical tensions. So it's really hard to get a rally in the stock market and crypto market when you have all this uncertainty. You have supply chain shortages. You have, is there a war going on or going to happen, an invasion between Russia and Ukraine? What's that going to do to natural gas, fertilizer, palladium, and oil? Are those going to continue to spike? I think that oil and energy is going to continue to spike unless this deal is done with Iran. It's crazy because OPEC controls that. So if we still get it from Russia, then yeah, energy is going to stay high. If we make some other deal, then it'll probably come down a little bit. But with inflation, I do think that energy, no matter which way you look at it, energy is still going to be going up because it just, historically in inflationary environments, energy does go up. And you got to watch that price of the crude barrel because, if we go up to, I think it's about $100, which we're not far from. I think we're at 91 right now. We were at 95. I think it dropped a little bit. And if we go up to 100, that's always been like an indicator for recessions. I can't imagine that we're not going to be going into a recession up the road. I just, it's really going to come down to a lot of these things. It's going to come down to unemployment. It's going to come down to, the growth of the GDP. But right now, in an inflationary environment, commodity prices are surging. Bitcoin and stocks can't really get to a rally. With all the uncertainty, and let's just go look at some indexes real quick, okay? And then I'm also going to give you guys some really premium technicals to go long that are really good. I mean, everything else that I don't say you could probably short, but there are a couple really good ones for longs. There's some emerging leaders. So as I had showed you multiple videos recently. This is the Dow. You had the pandemic, the accumulation phase. There goes your blue ribbons above the 200. Total bull run for the right length of time as well. There's your primary trend. The new primary trend is actually heading down. We're making lower highs. That was the first one. Okay, that was the second one. We made a higher high right there, and we got in the primary, and then we failed. Okay, we had a rejection and failed. So we're actually creating a downtrend now. This thing has had some pretty significant down days recently, so it wouldn't surprise me to see a couple up and then more down and possibly retest this low of 33,215. I mean, that's possible. I mean, that's very, very possible. It could also go much further. Like I said, a lot of charts I'm seeing, like BABA, PayPal, Facebook's one of them. There's quite a few actually. I've found like 5 or 6 of the major companies have done this. They've gone back to the previous peak from years ago, before COVID, and they've come all the way down. Now we know obviously nobody wants this to go down. I'm just saying that, I mean, it is possible in a full-blown like nasty crash that it could. But right now, it's like saying Bitcoin. Oh, Bitcoin's going to go, to 69,000. Well, first let's just get Bitcoin past that 44, or at this point, let's get it up to 42. So let's take one step at a time. Okay, let's look at the direction. Let's take one step at a time. And is this thing going to have a little rally? Now, if Putin, withdraws some troops, we have maybe a deal with Iran. There's the energy, subsides a little bit on price, and maybe. By the, this week we're not going to know about the Fed hike thing, but we might know about the Russia-Ukraine thing, and this thing, one way or another, it's either going to come down further, okay, and if it does, it could retest these lows. But if you notice in charts, when things come down really hard, there tends to be like a rally. It might not be where it creates higher highs, but there's a rally, and then what'll happen is probably people will sell the rip or try to get out even or at a smaller loss. But I mean, if you get like a two really good things, like Russia withdraws its troops, and Fed consensus is quarter point hike, when the market consensus is already priced in a 50 basis point hike. Actually, it's a 60 basis point hike. It's actually a little bit above there for March. I mean, if you get a couple good catalysts, then yeah, this thing could come above the 200, which would be a huge bullish sign. And then we might go sideways, and we'll just have to see what happens. I think with all the indexes and Bitcoin, everything is showing bearish. Everything that I see on all time frames, when I look deep into it, shows more bearish signals to come down further. Okay. And every day I'm extending this line. Now, if it goes up, we'll make the line go up. But, this morning I made it a little bit longer, and I'm just, we're just following. And I have it yellow just so you guys can see the directions. Okay. You want to pay attention to the pivots and the directions. And then I'm keeping a close eye on our reversions to the mean with the 200, our supports, our resistances, and our linear regressions and deviations. Okay. And I'm doing that on all of them. Let's go take a look at the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ tends to get really, really hit because of the high multiple in these types of environments. So looks like I had done some work on here. Okay, now let me see what I was working on here. Okay, so you had your primary trend. These are secondary trends. This actually, when it tested the low, it came to the low of the secondary trend. I actually identified that. I didn't notice that until last night. So this whole secondary trend that came down to its pivot before it started to go all the way up to here is also this pivot low, was the floor that it came down to. Now, we had a higher high. That was your first lower low. But I had told you guys to get out here, and then we directionally changed, and we just happened to come right to the primary trend, and then we pivoted up for a rally, which is always going to happen. When things get shaky, when you come down really hard, people are going to be like, no, it can't be, and then they're going to push hard, and that just happens. But what's critical is that if this goes higher than this, or even if it came down and made its way up through some time, would be positive. But it did go down, and it did go up, and it didn't make it, and it created another lower high. Okay, then it came down really hard, and it pivoted right off the 200 and caught resistance here on this one. Okay, then it came down extremely hard and broke all kinds of supports. Well, it came all the way back down to the lows of May 19th. So this is an important area right here. Now, I had drawn in this little box of confluence because it had come down, it went above, and then it started doing this thing in the side. So I was like, oh, I'm sorry. So it went down, it went up, it came in, it went up, it came back down, and we have these two candles, and I was like, oh, we have another one of those boxes where what this shaded area is when I draw them, it's basically when the market, the volatility slows down, and the market decides that this is a price that is fair, a fair market value. So it comes overreaction down, overreaction up, down, overreaction up, overreaction down, and it kind of finds its place in here. A lot of charts will have this, like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Neo. A lot of them will have these little areas of confluence where they come back into the box. Well, I thought that this thing might come out and choose a direction If it came up, that'd be positive. If it, I figured it'd come down, but no, it immediately decided to come out of the box, and it broke its previous higher low. Okay, so this thing, when it came down off this pivot, the secondary trend, the pivot low, and then the new pivot, it came down 9 months later to the same area. It created this purple, and then up here this purple, and it created this new trajectory going up. Well, that line is no longer relevant because it essentially just it went way down, went way up, down, was in the middle, and decided to come down right away. So it completely broke that. So now we have new information, and the new information that we have is actually, it would be more like this. And this isn't fair to actually put that there yet because we don't have that information. But again, look, it came down to another pivot low. So what do you see here? Okay, you see that you get distribution, you get a higher low or a higher high, excuse me, and a directional change to a lower high. Okay, that's bad. Okay, down again, up, another lower high. Double bottom though, and a rejection fail through the primary, pivots off the 200, breaks multiple supports and heads down all the way to the secondary trend of the pivot low from 9 months ago. Then it rallies up, gets rejected off the 200. That's not good at all. It comes down, and it comes down a level higher. Okay, a level higher on a previous pivot low. So this secondary trend was the lows of May 19th, 2021. So now when it creates its first leg of like maybe a W, it comes down to a second pivot low, which was a minor trend pullback of June 3rd, 2021. So now we're at this point of another moment of truth. Is this going to be a higher leg where this starts to go back up and we're going to create another higher low and a new trend direction? Or is this thing going to just keep failing and retest the low, or worse, retest the next level, which would be 12,398. So again, moment of truth. I mean, we really need to watch all this stuff, and that's why I said don't short stocks right now. Just play the inverse, like the S Dow, the SQQQ. I think it's TZA, and for the Russell small cap, and SPXU for the SPY, and that way you can just kind of trade the direction of. So like if it starts to rally and get a direction, blue candles, then you buy to go up, and if it goes down, you buy to go down, and that way you don't have all the noise of each individual stock. You have a grouping compartmentalized in an index, and it's just easier to trade the direction. Now, what I'm seeing on the daily on the indicators is this thing is still going to come down. Okay, and to me, from what I'm seeing, it looks like it's about to come down faster and harder, unfortunately. But if you look at the lines, we are at a critical point where it can make a decision. So it'll just be interesting. I can't tell you what's going to happen because I just don't know. But it is very important to pay attention to all these lines because, as you can see, when this goes up, it comes up to this one. When this one came up, it came up to this one, and when it boom up and it comes down the previous one, and there's a 200, and then down. I mean, everything is technically like completely finding its way through these previous pivot point, previous lows, and different trend lines. So something definitely to watch this week. This week is, we're coming to like this, literally this moment of truth of what is going to happen. Now on here we were creating, this is the Russell, we were creating, and we still are apparently, higher lows, okay. I mean, to me, like the Russell it's also making a decision, kind of going sideways, but going sideways at a much lower level than it was previously. And the main thing with the Russell is the index needs to get above this line. It's got to get above the 2106. If it gets above the 2106 and it gets back, above this into this, this area, well, that's a huge start for the small caps. However, I mean, I'm not seeing anything that is. I'm not seeing anything that's telling me that the Russell is going to be just like going up. It looks like it's really struggling to stay up. And like I had mentioned before, a bear market and impending recession, the small caps will go first, but they'll attempt to rally before like it hits the fan. And I had mentioned, like, I think it's attempting that last rally, one of the final things of the 23 conditions before, but there's 23 leading indicators. There's 15, I think 14 or 15 conditions that lead us into a recession. And I think we have 12 or 13 signed off. And this would be one of the last ones, is the small caps rallying before it fail. So we'll see if this one falls and retests its low or breaks through again. And then let's just take a look at the SPY. The SPY is very important to keep an eye on because the SPY is the top 500 companies of the U.S., and this will really pertain a lot to GDP and what's going to happen with the slowing growth. And obviously the Dow is the strongest, and it's a barometer for the economy, but the SPY is really, really important too. We've got to keep an eye on the SPY because that's like 500 of the biggest companies, and if they start missing on earnings and things like that start happening, then we have a lot of problems, right? So yeah, I mean, this week we got to watch Bitcoin and we got to watch these 4 indexes. We should probably keep an eye on the dollar and the VIX as well. Let's see what's going on with the dollar. Dollar's trending up. I mean, the dollar's getting strength, which makes sense to me because the whole reason the Fed is raising interest rates and putting us into a market correction or crash and possible recession is to protect the world reserve currency. Okay, that's more important than your stock value. So they can raise rates, save the world reserve currency, and then crash the market temporarily, and then they have a framework with higher rates to lower the rates later to take us out of a recession, because that's how we come out of recessions. Is they lower the rate, and then the Dow will lead us out, and industries and businesses will start coming back, and so will employment, and it all goes in these cycles. Look, the stock market is pretty darn resilient. It can go through a lot, but this is serious classic distribution, and nothing is telling me that it's going to go up. Unfortunately, I wish I could give you better news. And if this is just the very beginning, imagine if you bought here at the beginning of the blue ribbon to go long, and you were going there for 3 years, and now you're at the beginning of the red ribbon, which could come down, for 1.7 years, and another 1.5, 1.8 years to go up. Very possible, and historically that matches the average timeline for bear markets. Recessions happen on average every 8 years. Bear markets happen on average every 3.5 years, and there's usually 6 months in the accumulation, 6 months in the distribution, and about 2.5 in the bull. And the bears come down usually for about 1.7 years, and then up for a relatively about the same amount of time to get back to even. So call it 3 years, maybe a little longer. And we just started this, but we didn't start this in January or February. Okay, you have to understand. This was started back in November, okay? There's your first lower high. I mean, I would say from a true technical perspective, right here, this date, November 16th, is when it started, when it got really bad. Okay. Now, obviously, we had problems back in September, and I was notifying you guys through all that way back in here. But we did have that rally, and then we created this, and Now we're in full-blown distribution, and that means that big funds and institutions are pulling money out, and they have pulled out serious amounts of money. Back over in here, it was five trillion. I don't even know what it is now, but you have guys like BlackRock, J.P. Morgan, Merrill, Goldman. You have all these guys saying actually the opposite of be fully invested. They're actually saying we should be some in cash right now. And I've been saying that for months as well. So, if this thing were to come down, 3 years to get back to even, meaning back to this line, and like 1.7 years to go down, well, you take 1.7 and you subtract, November 16th from say today. So that's November to December, December to January. That's 3 months. So, I mean, essentially if we went into a bear market and we went past this low, you still got about 1 year and 4 months of downward trajectory, which essentially would probably take us to this line, which would be the peak of COVID, which means that the NASDAQ over time would probably make its way down to this 29,781, and then a reset, and then the new leg of a bull, and you're off, and you get all these, you go back through accumulation and all this. Now, I'm just saying that, that would be, I don't know that yet. Right now, I mean, we could just test the lows and start bouncing and doing this whole thing. We're just really going to have to keep an eye on it this week. Lots to look at, lots to think about. Now, I want to show you some, I want to show you a couple really good plays that you could actually go long on in this market. These are emerging leaders. I have tagged some purple. Look at this uptrend on this MATX. It's Matson Inc. Okay, above the 200, definitely in a bull trend. Okay, had a big day Friday as well. Another is Antero Resources. I mentioned it in my last video. Had a 3-year cup and handle. We started buying it in here, got out of it, and just recently got back in it. And with this big cup and handle, I thought maybe this was the cup, this was the handle, and it was going to break out. Well, the very next day after I made that video, it broke out. I mean, it had a massive day. Now the all-time high breakout from 3 years ago is coming up. Okay, one of the peaks before the fall is coming up, and that could happen Monday. So back in Antero, Alcoa, aluminum, another commodity that's doing really well. What's interesting is this also has this cup and handle kind of breakout thing going on, and cup, and this might just be a cup because it's on fire, or it might pull back and do a handle. But Alcoa is a good one. AA is the ticker, so you have MATX, AR, and AA. Another is NUE. I like this one. This is Nucor Corporation. And obviously in an uptrend, had some issues, but just got the blue ribbons. I just got it, okay? It just got the blue ribbon, so that's a really good sign. CMC, which is another metals company. It's above the 200, trending up, and it has blue ribbons. So it's another safe play, emerging leader. MLI. Producer, manufacturing, and metals fabrication, uptrend, blue ribbons, good to buy. This Atcor is, it's got a blue ribbon, but it looks like it's going to come down, but maybe not past the 200, but something to add. Gold, I mentioned it multiple times. Gold is trending up, just had a breakout recently above the 200. Gold is a good one. UAN is another one I like, CRV Partners. It is, trending up, coming down a little bit for a pullback, but I'm sure it'll come. It looks like it's going to come down a little bit further, and then it'll probably move up. So just keep an eye on that. Chevron, I mean, again, energy's pulling back, but it's in a nice uptrend. I mean, it's trending up, and that's what you want if you're going to try to go long against the macros going down, and these would be emerging leaders. Sky Network Corporation, or Skyline Champion Corporation, sorry, just got the blue ribbons. Also having a tough time with this last couple days in the last week, but still in an overall uptrend, something to consider. Doximity is about to go blue. I really like this one. NRGU is triple leveraged oil. With the whole Iran-Russia thing, oil is, it's going to either explode or it's going to come down. Again, this is like kind of moment of truth this week. A lot is going to go down. This is another really good one. AOSL. AOSL, super uptrend. I mean, had a big pullback, and it just got the blue ribbons. Definitely a bad day on Friday, though. I mean, 41 cents, so not that bad. But maybe it had a bad day the day before, too. I'm not sure. WFG, West Fraser Timber. Again, commodities, timber, metals, coal, oil, lean hogs, palladium, fertilizer. I mean, commodities are being inflated due to supply and demand. Visa, having a little bit of a tough time last couple days, but Visa is still in an uptrend, just definitely getting wrecked. And I like to look at the overall trend with the ribbons, but I like to go in and out on the clouds. So I see some pain coming in, but then once it changes directionally, I'll probably take that long. Apple also having problems recently, but definitely in an uptrend and safe, and kind of like gold as a cash part. This one I love. I just made money on it, but I got out of it, took the profit, and I'm going to re-enter star bulk carriers. That's another thing. Not just oil and energy and coal and fertilizer, but also like transportation, star bulk carriers, GRIN, ZIM. I'll show you those charts here in a minute. Uptrend above the 200. I mean, that momentum is just sick. So I'm definitely going to, I took profits on it. I like to take profits, and then, I can rebuy because I feel confident about this, but I'll just catch it on the pivot on a lower time frame. I'll come in and do something like this. So I got out here. You can see the little arrow where I got out. Let this thing come down, and when it wants to turn back and start making some blue clouds back there, I'll just jump back in and continue to ride the uptrend up. ACLS, uptrend, another one. ACLS looking good. I mean, just came down, but I just got in over here, and then it came down, but I'm not worried. I mean, it's looking pretty good, actually. This one is good, and this is a semiconductor, RMBS. It's called Rambus. Just got the blue ribbon and above the 200, and I do like that sector. Boeing is a tricky one. Boeing is tricky. I mean, Boeing. I mean, this thing has just gotten wrecked, and it has, tried to go up, and now it's making all these lower highs, and it's had the red ribbon. But look what happened. It just got a blue. Now, I don't want to get faked out like it did here and here. And to me, it looks like, again, this thing is going to come down, and you can see that, and that's why I just opened a little short on it. But it's probably, and it got rejected off the 200 too. That's why I did that. I'll probably just take my little profit on that and get out of that one, because it's not worth having all these different stocks going on. It's just better to, get out of it, less to manage. This one I love, guys. This is ZIM. And unfortunately, I've run this multiple times and profited on it every single time. I've never taken a loss on it, but I entered one day early because Friday just got wrecked. But, look at the overall uptrend. I mean, should you really be that worried about it? I don't think you should. SM Energy, it's been choppy. It's energy, but definitely in an uptrend. Definitely in an uptrend. I've run this multiple times, many, many times. If you just stay in it and trust the blue cloud, I mean, you're in an uptrend. HSON, which is Hudson Global, major uptrend. Okay. Again, that cloud is changing, so it looks like it might come down a little bit and then bounce back up. Micron uptrend. Again, it's so choppy out there. You jump in and then boom, it comes down. But I mean, it's okay to be long in an uptrend. It's, you don't have to. You can sleep well at night with that. This one I really like, Peabody Energy. This one I was in, made a good amount of profit, and then I just jumped back in again. And then, but right after I jumped in, Biden came out and said, you know what, Russia's doing this thing, and we're over it. We're going to go to Iran for oil, and then oil dropped on me. But again, uptrend, and I believe that oil and energy will still go up. for quite a while actually too, because commodities, all commodities and supply demand, and they're all going to go up in an inflationary environment, and inflation's not going away. So keeping an eye on that. Datadog just got the blue ribbon again, got crushed, and I am a little concerned because this one's getting rejected. It looked like it was breaking out and then got rejected, so gonna have to keep an eye on that one. Might have to cut a loss on that one. Airbnb is another one. Just got the blue ribbon. We'll see if it's getting rejected off this previous swing high. A lot of chop out there, but you want to trust the trend and just rest easy that when it has a good day, these will be the ones that get your money back really fast. This one I really like, Grin. This is the second time that I've run it. I've already taken profit on it once, and I just got back in. You can see the little buy right there. Just got back in, and I think it fell a little bit at the end of the day, but certainly not worried about this. It's in transportation, which is going to do well for a long time right now. And look at the overall uptrend. So those are a few really good premium technicals. Kind of keep an eye on. And as far as Bitcoin, let me find it. Sorry. It's in here. There it is. Oh, it's come down a little bit, huh? Okay, let's go look at this real quick. Yeah, it's coming down, but the wick is pushing up. So let's go see what's going on the smaller. Yeah, this thing is just, I mean, this green line is everything right here. Came all the way right down to the line twice, it looks like, maybe when I was sleeping. Yeah, it's going sideways is what it looks like to me. Let's look at a 30-minute. Yeah, it's just kind of going sideways right on the line. Ribbons are tightening, but then downward pressure is going to pull it down more. So yeah, this is not looking too wonderful. We definitely want to see if it's going to bounce with momentum, and then maybe we can go long. Like, it'll be more dangerous because you're definitely in a downtrend. But I mean, just like short little fast trades, scalps, or intraday day trades can be done. Better to probably either stay out of this or be short on it at this point. But like I said, I'm not trying to be short on it until we're below this line. If we're below this line, then it's it's a whole different deal for me. How do I fix that? Yeah, so this week is going to be really important to watch everything. Crypto, the indexes, stocks are going to get wrecked if this Russian invasion happens. It'll be temporary. It won't be like forever with the Russia thing. I think what's more important for the stock market and crypto market is going to come down to the rate hikes with the federal fund rate and the inflation data. Okay, that's like priority one. I know the Russian invasion is in the news a lot, and it is a very, very big deal. But geopolitical tensions tend to be temporary on the correction time frame in the markets, but the inflation and rate hike thing, it might not be as temporary. So lots to watch this week. I just wanted to give you a perspective on some things to think about. Obviously, it's good to be in cash, it's good to be directional, but right now there's just so many moments of truth from support and pivots and linear regressions and so many things to think about that it's hard to know where it's going to go. So best to just stay out, let it find its direction, go through its process, and then make your move technically and intelligently. So I'm going to leave it there. My name is Chris. Thank you for watching to the end. I really appreciate that. Please make a comment and like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And I'll see you in the next one. Welcome to the Wheelhouse.